Takumi opened his eyes to find himself floating in a boundless, shimmering white void. A massive, golden magical circle suddenly ignited beneath his feet with an audible hum. Out of the brilliance emerged a woman of impossible beauty, draped in silken white robes. The goddess Nolan bowed her head, explaining that his summoning was a cosmic mistake. She offered him a second life in the world of Asgard as compensation for the error. Rather than choosing the path of a warrior, Takumi requested the power to create. Nolan smiled and bestowed upon him the legendary S-rank creation and alchemy skills. A cascade of silver light enveloped his body as his soul was restructured for the new world. He woke up lying on a bed of soft emerald moss deep within a sun-drenched forest. Takumi noticed his hair had turned a brilliant metallic silver, reflecting the sunlight. With a thought, a blue semi-transparent status window flickered into existence before him. He realized his stats were off the charts for a simple craftsman. A rustle in the nearby bushes caught his attention, and he stood up defensively. A small, injured wolf pup limped out, whimpering in pain. Takumi immediately knelt down, wanting to test his newfound alchemy skills. He gathered a handful of common herbs and focused his mana into his palms. In an instant, the plants transformed into a high-grade healing potion. He poured the liquid over the pup's wound, watching the flesh knit back together instantly. The pup licked his hand in gratitude before scampering back into the woods. A sudden scream echoed from the direction of a nearby trail. Takumi sprinted toward the sound, finding a merchant carriage under attack. A pack of feral goblins brandishing rusted daggers surrounded the terrified travelers. Even though he wasn't a fighter, Takumi grabbed a sturdy branch and infused it with mana. The branch hardened into a material stronger than steel under his magical touch. He swung the makeshift weapon, sending a shockwave that knocked the goblins back. The goblins fled in terror from the strange silver-haired youth. The merchant, a stout man named Barlow, thanked Takumi profusely for the rescue. Barlow invited Takumi to accompany them to the nearby village of Kenna. As they traveled, Takumi noticed a massive glowing blue spiderweb blocking the path ahead. The horses reared up in fright as a giant blue spider descended from the canopy. Takumi felt no malice from the creature, only a deep, starving loneliness. He stepped forward, ignoring Barlow's warnings, and reached out to the beast. Using his alchemy, he created a high-energy mana pellet and offered it to the spider. The spider delicately took the pellet and emitted a soft, vibrating purr of satisfaction. A prompt appeared, asking if he wished to form a familiar contract with the creature. He agreed, naming the beautiful blue spider Maple. Maple shrunk in size until she could comfortably sit on Takumi's shoulder. They finally arrived at Kina, a quaint village surrounded by golden wheat fields. Takumi set up a small stall in the town square to sell his first batch of crafted items. As the moon rose, a hooded figure watched him from the shadows of a nearby tavern. The figure clutched a pendant bearing the crest of the Sidonia Empire. Suddenly, Maple hissed, her blue eyes darting toward the rooftops. A black arrow whistled through the air, narrowly missing Takumi's head and thudding into his stall. Who could be targeting a simple alchemist on his very first day in this world? Takumi realized his quiet life of crafting might be over before it even began. Takumi shook off his lingering doubts and set his sights on the distant walls of Bolton. Maple chirped from his shoulder, her tiny legs twitching in excitement at the prospect of a new adventure. Upon entering the city gates, the sheer scale of the cobblestone streets and crowded markets took his breath away. He noticed that despite the grandeur, the city struggled with a noticeable lack of proper waste management. An alchemist's true power lay not in destruction, but in improving the daily lives of the common people. His first stop was the local Adventurers Guild to register his presence and seek potential help. Inside the hall, a tall elf with long blonde hair and piercing green eyes caught his attention immediately. Sophia moved with a grace that suggested years of experience in the wild frontiers. Takumi approached her with a proposition that would change both of their fortunes forever. He needed a guardian for his workshop, and she needed a purpose beyond simple hunting. Sophia agreed to a contract, her hand glowing with a soft green light as the magical bond formed. With a protector secured, Takumi next sought a residence that could double as his laboratory. He found a dilapidated mansion on the edge of town that others feared was cursed. Living in the ruins was a young maid named Maria, who had been left behind by the previous owners. Takumi offered her a place in his new household, promising to restore the mansion to its former glory. Maria wept with gratitude as she signed the employment contract, her eyes shining for the first time in years. Work began immediately as Takumi activated his S-rank production skills to renovate the building. Rotting wood was replaced by pristine oak, and grime vanished under the power of his cleansing spells. In just one afternoon, the cursed house had become the most beautiful estate in Bolton. Takumi now turned his attention to the city's sanitation problem, brewing a revolutionary enzymatic cleaner. He presented the solution to the city council, demonstrating how it could instantly purify contaminated water. The council members whispered in disbelief as they watched the miracle unfold before their eyes. Soon, Takumi's alchemical products were in high demand, bringing a steady flow of gold into the household. Maple helped by weaving high-tensile silk that Takumi used to create incredibly durable adventuring gear. Sophia tested the new armor, marveling at how it was lighter than leather yet stronger than steel. For a time, life in Bolton was perfect, a dream of domestic bliss in a magical world. Takumi began to explore the deeper mysteries of the S-rank skills Nolan had bestowed upon him. He discovered a recipe for a holy elixir that required ingredients found only in the most dangerous monster nests. Knowing he needed to secure his home, he spent nights enchanting the mansion's walls with defensive wards. The wards hummed with power, ensuring that no unwanted intruders could breach their sanctuary. Maria prepared a feast every night, her cooking skills improving alongside Takumi's alchemy. They had become a family, bound not by blood but by shared labor and mutual respect. However, news from the border began to grow dark, as rumors of a hero from the Empire surfaced. This hero was said to be conquering lands with terrifying speed, leaving only ashes in their wake. Takumi knew that if the Empire came to Bolton, his alchemy would be the city's only hope. He began mass-producing high-grade potions to stock the city's infirmary in preparation. One evening, a massive shadow loomed over the city, far larger than any bird should be. Sophia grabbed her bow, sensing a malevolent aura approaching from the northern mountains. Takumi stepped out beside her, his heart hammering against his ribs as the air grew cold. A blood-curdling roar echoed through the streets, signaling the arrival of something far worse than a simple monster. The sky suddenly turned a deep crimson as a strange magical portal began to tear open above the town square. Out of the portal stepped a young girl in school uniform, her eyes glowing with an unnatural empty light. Takumi gasped as he recognized the emblem on her blazer. She was another hero from Earth, but she wasn't herself. The girl raised a hand, and the ground beneath the mansion began to tremble violently. Takumi realized his peaceful life was a fragile illusion that was now shattering into 1,000 pieces. The peaceful horizon of Bolton was suddenly marred by a thick, unnatural fog rolling in from the east. Takumi felt a sharp prickle on the back of his neck as his S-rank detection skill flared to life. He looked down at the city gates where a lone figure in strange, familiar clothing was approaching. The stranger wore a modern Japanese school uniform that looked completely out of place in this world. Without warning, the girl drew a glowing blade and slashed through the air with terrifying speed. Takumi jumped from the balcony, using his wind magic to cushion a rapid descent toward the gate. He landed between the confused guards and the aggressive newcomer, summoning a translucent shield. The girl, Akane, screamed in a voice that sounded hollow and devoid of emotion. Takumi noticed a dark crest pulsing on her neck and realized she was under magical compulsion. He knew he couldn't hurt her, so he reached into his bag for a specialized purification potion. With a precise throw, he shattered the flask at Akane's feet, releasing a cloud of golden mist. The purple glow vanished from her eyes, and she collapsed into the arms of the startled alchemist. As she woke up in the infirmary later that night, she wept while explaining the horrors of the Sidonia Empire. She revealed that the Empire was using heroes as batteries to fuel a massive monster summon. Just as she finished her story, a massive tremor shook the entire fortress to its foundations. Takumi rushed to the battlements and saw a tide of thousands of monsters approaching. He called for Sophia and Maria, who stood ready with their enhanced gear. Maple the spider and the other tame monsters formed the first line of defense at the base of the walls. Takumi began his ultimate alchemy, pouring all his mana into the fortress's defense system. Golden runes appeared across the stone walls, creating an impenetrable barrier of light. The monster stampede slammed into the barrier, creating sparks that lit up the night sky. Sophia launched volleys of arrows that were imbued with Takumi's explosive fire salts. Maria swung her enchanted mace, sending shockwaves through any monster that breached the perimeter. Despite their efforts, the number of monsters seemed endless, threatening to drain Takumi's mana completely. Akane stood up, grabbing her sword and joining the fray to prove her new loyalty. She fought with the grace of a true hero, carving a path through the monster ranks. Seeing her fight gave the rest of the community the courage to stand their ground. Takumi realized he had to strike the source of the stampede to end the threat forever. He combined his S-rank alchemy with a divine blessing to create a massive purification bomb. He launched the sphere high into the air where it exploded like a second sun. The light washed over the monsters, turning them into harmless petals of mana that floated away. Takumi fell to his knees as the immediate danger finally passed. Sophia and Maria ran to his side, helping him back to his feet with wide smiles. Akane approached them and bowed deeply, thanking Takumi for saving her soul. The Sidonia Empire's influence had been broken in this region, and the people were finally safe. Takumi looked at his diverse family of elves, humans, and monsters, feeling a deep sense of belonging. He realized that his purpose wasn't just to survive, but to build a place where everyone could live in peace. They spent the next few days repairing the small damages and celebrating their victory with a grand feast. The goddess Nolan appeared in a dream to congratulate Takumi on finding the path of a true hero. With his friends by his side and his alchemy ready, Takumi looked forward to a long peaceful life in Asgard. The story of the Blessed Alchemist became a legend that inspired generations to come. In the end, Takumi had found exactly what he was looking for, a place to call home.